Verbally Effective with Ina Esco is an interview-style podcast that intersects art, culture, politics, and entertainment with a Memphis focus. Each week, I'm joined by a featured guest with roots in Memphis. Verbally Effective delves into each guest's personal journey to uncover the incredible stories fueling their purpose, the highs and lows of their pursuits, and how through their passion, they are moving the culture forward. Be sure to follow Verbally Effective and Ina Esco on Instagram. Also, download the Verbally Effective podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play Music. Don't forget to check out the website and submit to be a guest at verballyeffective.com. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Verbally Effective Podcast. I'm your host, Ina Esco, and this podcast is powered by We Are Memphis. This is the pod that intersects art, culture, politics, and entertainment with a Memphis focus. Be sure that you are subscribed today on all streaming platforms and also the Ina Esco channel. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready, because my girl is in the building. Now, she is an experienced organizer. She represents the queer community. She is a communication and digital media strategist, and she got a whole bunch of other stuff up under her titles. I'm talking about Shahidah Jones. What's up? I call her Shay. What's up, Shay?
What's going on? You have amazing enunciation skills.
I do.
Yes, you do, child.
You know what?
Okay, then.
I credit that. Look, I credit that to Sister Angelina, my 4th and 5th grade teacher at Our Mother of Mercy School. She worked with me.
Okay.
So
it's evidence.
Thank you.
It's evidence. I'm like, let me get that little soft tea on the end sometimes. Okay.
Yes. Now, Shay, tell the good people, what part of Memphis are you from?
I am from North Memphis, Smokey City, New Chicago area. Graduate of Northside High School. So, north all the way.
You like north for real.
For real.
Like, what's the intersection of your neighborhood? Where you go?
So,
in Smokey City.
Now, when we talk about Smokey City, we talking about heirs to Manassas.
Gotcha.
The side of Manassas that's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, so the cutoff from my era is right there where Humes is. And so the side of the street that Humes is on actually starts, kind of Hertz Village, 7th Street, them type folks over there. So Smokey City is very, very small. And actually, when I was growing up, my grandma stays at the corner of, and we still have the property there at the corner of Valentine and Ayers.
Wow.
And my other grandmama is at the corner of Chelsea and Manassas, so right around the corner from each other. But I always thought it was always Smokey City. New Chicago. And then when I went to Northside, they was like, no.
They had to get you right.
Folks that go to New Chicago folks go to Manassas. Which, and Northside folks would call that Smokey City. And I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yes.
Readjust.
Okay, so any siblings?
Yes, I'm the oldest it's 4 of us. I have 2 sisters and a little brother. All of them old, though. We all old.
Yeah, girl, no, just better. Tell me about growing up in North Memphis. How was your childhood?
My childhood was lit. Like, I love growing up in North Memphis. We rode bikes everywhere. We was, Halloween and trick-or-treating and throwing eggs and, going to folks' houses and, hopscotch outside, double dutch. I had a great childhood. And so my family all lived close, and I grew up with a big extended family. Like, my cousins are like my sisters and brothers. And normally if one of us, one part of the family, at least 5, 6 other from both sides. Like I said, my family grew up around the corner from each other. So like all of my aunts and uncles know my other aunts and uncles. They all went, so they always 7 on my mama's side, 8 on my dad's side.
Girl, you got big family.
And so they all went to school together. Like, they went to Manassas and stuff together.
They
and
roll deep.
Yeah. So, and that's also why, I always feel protected. I've always felt at home because there's not a part of North Memphis that my family hasn't touched, So I understand the boundaries, but I never had to have issue with the boundaries because my family's from all over, we spread out. We still spread out in the north, so and that's where I live today. That's where I bought my house and settled now right off Jackson. So,
You know what, Shay? A big part of your life is so much to do with a lot of activism in the city of Memphis. Do you have family members that were activists when you were growing up that you looked up to?
I mean, I think my uncle Spike is the closest thing. Not only did I grow up in the North, but like my uncle was instrumental in switching my mom's half of the family, my aunts and uncles, converting them over to Islam.
Wow.
And so I grew up in between, religions. And my uncle was instrumental in converting. Like my mama say to this day, like if you was Muslim in New Chicago, you came under my uncle, right?
Wow.
And so like the organizing and the community that happened as part of being in the Islamic community, I think is part of where the foundation of how I think about community and how I think about us resourcing each other to meet each other's needs and the power of people, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that, ironically or coincidentally, that's also like his Muslim name was Shahid and my name is Shahidah. So
yeah, because that's a very disciplined way of life.
It can be.
Yeah.
You know, we have we have plenty of black backsliders. Me being one.
Don't we all?
Many times. But yeah, it is very ritualistic. So
gotcha. Now, what was the young Shay into growing up in North Memphis? What was you into?
Child, I always have been into reading lots of books. Talking a bunch of shit.
Yes.
As a child, that's probably asking a lot of questions. And lots of just fantasy type stuff. Like I just daydream, zone out a lot. So
wow. So tell me about what happened after you graduated high school, Shay.
So after I graduated high school, I went to Austin Peay by mistake.
By mistake?
I did.
What
I went to Austin
happened?
Peay State University by mistake. So one, I always wanted to go to Spelman. Always.
Me too.
And so I had gotten tested. They put us in this pilot program the year that I started going to Northside to like follow the progress of folks based on their test scores. So they tested me on the ACT and I had a really good score for Northside. And everybody was like, "Oh my God, how'd you get this score?" Yeah. Anyway, they actually had challenged it and made me take it again. And
they challenged it.
yeah, that's an even longer story. But so then we went on a college tour and I was like, I'm going to Spelman. And it was like, yeah, you definitely could get in with that score, but we ain't gonna give you no money. And it just like the person was real. And so I was like, oh, that was like my first experience with, I think, like intra-racist classism. Because I was like, yeah, this probably not gonna be for you,
The
boo.
person from Spelman told you.
Yes,
Wow.
the person, the college tour person.
Child.
And so, and that was also the year. So the other school that I wanted to go to was Stanford, and there was I got some preliminary acceptance there. But that was the year that they went. I can't remember what the amendment was, but they decided to get rid of their affirmative action based scholarships, which meant that then that was rescinded.
Oh my
and
God.
so one day I was just sitting at the house and I was like, what am I gonna do, child? Arguing with my daddy. And was like, I know I got to get up out this house. You see?
Right.
I was like, I know I'm
Right.
finna get up out
I
of
ain't gonna
here.
be here.
And some lady called and she was like, hey, we still got this scholarship over here to Austin Peay. I thought it was on Austin Peay Highway, child. I was like, y'all got some dorms? And she was like, yes. And I was like, I'm coming over there. And a friend of mine who went to Northside with me, who was also going there for football, who is now an amazing football coach over here at Middle College, said, hey, when you riding up to Austin Peay? I was like, up? Talking about up the street? It's like, nah, fool. And so I just ended up there, child. And I was, we just had to pack up, go to the little Walmart we got there. I just showed up with my little bed in the bag and a book backpack. It was like, I guess I'm finna
You
be
up in
here.
that thing.
Yep, and that is where I learned. Growing up in Memphis in the 90s, right? Racism wasn't what I know. I did not believe that racism was a thing, right? Because I grew up, Willie Harrington was the mayor. We had black doctors and black lawyers, and it's a black ass town. It's black all the time. And so I had never been a minority till I got to Austin Peay.
Ooh, culture shock.
Baby, let me say it.
How did
Was
you
not
handle
ready.
this, Shay?
Oh, I did not handle it well. I was in a lot of trouble at Austin Peay. I was on probation a couple of times. I got my first charge up there, fooling around. It was a lot. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. But I made it on through.
You made it through.
I made it on through.
What was your major at Austin Peay?
Child, what was it? I want to say it was like English and non-Western literature, and then a concentration in technical communications.
Okay.
And so I don't know what I was doing. At first I wanted to be a teacher, and then they did a little student teaching. I was like, no, that ain't what's gonna be for me. And so then I just picked whatever was necessary for me to graduate to get on up out of there.
You made it through. Now, was there any organizing that you took part in?
I think kind of. I wouldn't have called it organizing then, but I definitely was. I remember we were trying to. Austin Peay was really, really segregated. Like they were still having like pretty much black and white homecomings when I went to.
Austin Peay is in what city?
Clarksville,
Tennessee.
Yeah, they were still having William Bedford Forest.
In the 90s.
In the 90s, that was like we had like Soul Fest. And then it was like regular homecoming, which was white people homecoming. And so we're trying to run a black homecoming queen. And I remember the first article I wrote for the newspaper was questioning our then student body president. I can't remember what her name was, but she was a white girl. And I was like, girl, what have you done for me lately? And so we ran it down just about, what it would mean to have black folks in those positions and the designation of school funding. But that was not well received.
It wasn't by the faculty or student body?
By
both.
Okay. Both.
They wasn't used to this, Shay.
They wasn't. They were not. But so, and then I also kind of ended up in a counter sorority that we created ourselves called the Bitches.
The Bitches. That was a counter sorority. Who was the ringleader, Shay? You was the ringleader.
I'm not gonna say nothing about no ringleader. I'm not gonna say nothing about no ringleader. But it was a group of us, and I was involved.
Wait a minute. What was the mission of the Bitches?
Oh, we was bad bitches before it was cool. We was ahead of the time, boo. We was ahead of the time.
OMG, Shay. Okay, I'm feeling it though.
Yeah.
Now, when you graduated from Austin Peay, what happened next?
Woo, child. So when I graduated from Austin Peay, I was like, oh, I'm finna go get me a big job. I'm finna go do all this stuff. And I came on back home, and I was just getting jobs. It was like $10 an hour, and I was like, ooh.
Like, I didn't think it would be like this.
Ooh, this wasn't. What a big dollars at this.
So what I thought.
So I actually started working at a strip club.
Okay.
And
which one?
Ebony and Lace, Shay. I'm old.
Okay, Ebony and Lace.
And
what was you doing at the strip club,
I was
Shay?
not stripping because I cannot dance.
Okay.
But I was the on again, off again, kind of suitor bartender, assistant to the girls, table. I mean, they ain't really had no services, you know what I'm saying? No bottle services. You just had to just make sure the folks was getting they 2 Smirnoff ices or whatever, So, but yeah, so I worked there until they had to find a little drug bust.
Okay, but you was making that money at Ebony and Lace. I know you did.
I was like the best waitress job I ever had.
Okay.
I mean, I still think something was not quite right about it, but
yes, I remember that. Ebony and Lace.
I mean, wasn't nothing legal about it. Let me just go and say that. Wasn't nothing legal about it, I think. But yeah, it was a great opportunity to make money and meet people and see folks in a different setting than I had ever been to. I realized I was super green before I got there. And then I was like, oh, okay. Wow. Oh, that's crack. Oh, I did not know. Dang. That's what that was. Okay.
Another side of Memphis.
But then, you know what I'm saying? But the other thing is that side, like all of the people that when I first walked in, I was like, oh, these folks is doing, oh my God, they're doing these drugs and they're such bad people. I'm still in connection with a lot of them today. They, like it humanized me and started to think about people differently. And so juxtaposing those two different things, like my experience going to college and then my experience, being othered in college, and having to think more deeply about what race meant, and then coming out of college expecting this kind of ascent into a different class that never happened, and then being forced to think about be what many would consider low class, and developing the type of lifelong connections, commitments, and learning that I had there just has shaped my life fundamentally. It changed the way I think about people, places, all of that.
So after the big bust at Ebony and Lace, what was next?
Child, what happened? It's so hazy.
Did you teach?
So I did a little bit of substitutes teaching, horribly. Baby, I was the substitute you wanted to have, baby. Come on in here and sit down. We're gonna watch this. I don't know what they told you. I'm just here for the day. Here go the packet.
Oh my God.
Here go the packet. So I didn't do that for very long. What happened next? Oh, I got pregnant. That's what happened. I turned around and got pregnant. And then I was like, oh, I got to get a real job. I got to get a real job. And so I started working at a call center because, you know, that's where the money was in Memphis, the call center. Baby, I probably worked at every call center on this earth. But started working at the call center. And then I had my one and only child. Thank God, I love her to death. But
she grown now, huh?
She is 20. She turned 20 on the 15th of July. And but yeah, I had her, and then I had to reshift and be like, okay, I gotta have something more steady, more stable. I had a really tough pregnancy, and so so I was like, okay, well, I gotta transition into motherhood.
Yes.
And so then I just became like it feels like overnight I became like this good corporate citizen. Like I worked in corporate America, worked my way up. I became a supervisor, then a manager, and I got my Six Sigma green belt certification. And then I went over to FedEx and I worked in sales and marketing there. And I was just like, okay. But there was I was always feeling pulled that the work that I was doing was not the work that I was meant to be doing. And I was not very happy in the traditional, like, you know, we bought our first house together, I'm married, I got a good husband and a car, and, you know, all of these things that should make me happy, but I wasn't. I wasn't happy. And so our family went through a lot of death around this time too. And so some of my cousins who, you know, I had known all my life had passed, and I just had to rethink about, like, what is my, like, when I hit my 30s, it was like, what am I doing, right? What is it that I need to be doing, what I want to be doing, what is it I want my life to look like? And for me, I've always, like, it seems like every decade of my life, I've become something different, something more that builds on the last one.
Reinvented yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm a totally different person now at 40 plus than I was at 30 plus.
Wow. Now, what do you feel like was missing in your 30s?
I think one, a work with a sense of purpose. You know, so much about what I thought about success was wrapped up in titles and money. And when I got titles and money, it wasn't it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it didn't ever satisfy me being who I felt called to be. And I always think about it like this. In Islam, there's I don't know if you say ideology, but we call it Kismet, right? Which is the belief, and we believe in free will, but we also believe that there's a destiny to each of us, a path destined for us. And there's just a way that you feel when you're walking in that destiny. And I just felt like I wasn't on the path that was meant for me.
Wow. So what changed?
So what changed? So a couple of things changed. Separated from my husband. I started working on DreamFest with Kat.
Okay. And what year, what time frame is this?
This is like 2011-ish, right?
I remember.
And then I started, I guess, I can't remember what I can't remember what the first thing was, but I started paying closer attention locally to the grassroots organizing that was happening. So that's when I first would have come in contact with Miss South Peace and Justice and some of the work that they were doing around organizing. And so I, like signed up and gave like $5 or something and would get those little messages. And then I had started to do more community-based work then, but it was more charity then than it was activism or organizing. And so those are the seeds that would later lead me into becoming an organizer. So
wow, isn't that amazing?
It is.
How we go through these different chapters in life like that. Okay, so let's talk about the organizing piece of your journey, Shay. Where did it really begin? Where did you really find purpose?
So at this juncture in my life where I found, so it started organizing around the murder of Darrius Stewart. And so I was sitting at the house, scrolling on Facebook, and I saw a letter and a call to action. I was like, hey, this has happened to this young black man in Memphis, and if you're pulled to do something about it, meet us at this church, where they later turned out to be Pastor Earl's church, Abyssinian. And that is where I met Pastor Earl. That's where I met Dr. Andre Johnson, Reverend Dr. Pastor Earl. Let me say that.
Get it right.
That's where I met Tammy Sawyer, CJ, many of the folks that I organized, Kedron. So well, actually, I met Kedron through the music scene first, but this is where I meet him as an organizer, an activist. And Jayani and many folks, that was my first meeting of a lot of those folks. And so that is where I first actually, for me, activism is more about you, right? It's like what you feel called to do and how you identify your politics, but organizing is about it's pulling folks together to do a thing.
Okay.
And so that's when I first get into like organizing people, is around the death of Darrius Stewart. And there was so much that happened there. And I mean, it's still a very hard thing for me to talk about, just watching what happened to the family, watching what happened to community, watching how exploitative media can be in these situations, a deeper understanding of the unfettered power of police, and specifically the DA in that situation. So it was like opened my eyes to so much, and that is where I was like, this is the start of something for me.
So that was the beginning of the activism. And Shay, like to be an activist in real time right now, talk to the people about this particular journey of activism. Because when we think about activists, a lot of people go right to Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X. You a real day activist in one of the blackest cities in the United States. Tell me about being an activist, your walk. How is it different?
Ooh, child, I don't know that it is different. I think the only major difference is that I just decide to be active, right? I don't think it's a particular, there's skill in anything that we do, right? And one of the best skills that I think you can have individually is great communication skills. And so, organizing does require that you have strong communication skills, but not in a way that, like the kind of pedantic way we're used to, where we're talking about grammar and syntax and how somebody's saying something, and whether it's first inaugural or inaugural, first annual or inaugural, right? But just how are you able to talk to folks and communicate ideas, theory, and empowerment. And so I think the only thing that it takes really is for you to decide that it's time for you to act. I'm a regular person. I smoke, I drink, I do a bunch of, shit that I probably shouldn't do. You know what I'm saying? And the major difference is just getting up and deciding that that's not going to stop me from fighting for what I think we all deserve. So
yes, and you've been doing this for how long, Shay?
So I've been I would say that was 2015, and so 7 years, and so. I've been active in the official Black Lives Matter chapter, Memphis chapter, since then, and we've done a lot of good work, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done here. So
yes, and you do a lot with bail's bonds, right?
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Our biggest campaign is our campaign to end money bail, and one of the major reasons that we're chose that campaign is just because there's a perception that folks have that jail is just this place that houses all of these horrible criminals that have done all these horrible things. And when we talk about jails and prisons, we're often talking about, we often already immediately go to rapists and murderers. And the reality is that, especially when it comes to rape, I think the percentages are like 1% to 2% of rapists are actually found guilty and serve time. And then when we talk about murder, we're still talking about like 2 to 3 percentage points of total crime. And so the jails are really end up being filled with people who can't afford to pay bail. Jail specifically, so the difference between jails and prison is jails are for folks who are awaiting trial, right, or are often serving small, short sentences, and then prisons are where folks who have been found guilty of a crime go. So in 201, we're housing people there who have not been found guilty of a crime. And we spend millions of dollars to do that. And many of them are there for drug crimes or nonviolent, and I hate to say nonviolent because the way that the state defines violent isn't the way that we define violent. And so the categorization of what is considered violence is also not true, right? Most of the folks sitting there have not done harm or harmful behaviors. They are being accused of those things. And what we have allowed is for our bail system to become our safety net versus our trial system. And so in Memphis, where we have the majority of folks, I want to say the average amount of income in Memphis for a 4-person family is like right at $40,000, right? So that's for 4 people. So that means that if you go to jail and have to pay a $500 bond,
that's a big deal.
like that's a big deal for that family. That's a big deal. 1 or 2 days, we just had someone that wasn't supposed to be in jail at all that was held for 5 days, who lost their job while they were in there. So 2 or 3 days in jail, 24 hours in jail can have, far-ranging effects, and that's part of the cycle that we see in Memphis, right? Is that you have people accused, criminalization is high. We criminalize everything. We think the answer to everything is to put folks in jail, and it's not. It doesn't solve the problem, and in fact creates more of the problems we see, because once they've been put into that system, once they are in that bail situation where they have to borrow, it's like it's how we would think about what is the thing when you get the checks that you $200, they give you $250, you got to go back. What is that called?
The checking the cash.
Checking the cash type stuff, right? Like it's that revolving door of like you tend to only get to it's predatory in their way. So we're trying to get us to a point where we start thinking about what is justice and what is fair and what is right for folks who are supposed to have a system where they're innocent until proven guilty. And right now, our system automatically condemns folks, specifically Black and brown folks, specifically poor folks, to lives in prison or attached to that prison system, starting with the bail bond. And so we're trying to interrupt that, at least as the start of us thinking about what are different ways we can think about actually achieving and lowering crime and make our neighborhoods safer. So.
Yeah, and that's the inner workings of the Shelby County District Attorney Office. And today, the Verbally Effective Audience is August 4th. Today is the day that Tennessee votes, the last day. And we don't know who the district attorney is yet, but currently it's Amy Wyrick, Steve Mulroy. What are your thoughts on Steve? You rather Steve than Amy?
I would rather Steve than Amy.
Okay.
I would rather Steve than Amy. I, though, feel like I would have rather it been one of the Black women that was running, not just because they were Black women. Though I want to just say that ain't nothing wrong with voting for folks, because everybody don't know half the people on the ballot, and we often get shamed, allow ourselves to be shamed for the same behaviors that everybody is doing. Yeah. But and so I think if you don't have anything else to go and say, well, the thing I'm gonna do is vote for a Black woman, I don't think it's any different from somebody saying, well, the thing I'm gonna do is vote Republican, or the thing I'm gonna do is gonna vote, so I don't think there's actually anything wrong with that. But I would have preferred them to, but definitely I think Amy just has taken that position and wielded their power in a way that has brought way more harm than good. And you don't have to guess about it, because if you go in the hoods, more of them know her name, because they know that's who signed the jacket, who who stacked those charges, and so there's also just an inconsistency in the way that justice has been levied under her. And so,
like you said, predatory.
So
wow. I wonder if Steve would, like I said, we don't know who won at this point, but I wonder what will really change with Steve. Now, we know what we got with Amy, but
I'm going to say this now. And now we did talk to all of the candidates, and while I would have definitely preferred, and I still think, it's a little bit shaky that he came into the race when he did with the 2 Black women. I will say that in my direct conversation with him, one of the things I do know is that he has done a lot of work around racial equity. I do know that he has planned and has been on the record for noting many changes, specifically in support of changes around our current bail system, in support of changes about the way that we currently charge folks, in reviewing cases, in transparency of the office. And so while I don't think that we're going to look up tomorrow and going to be like, oh my God, this is this amazing, great work, I do think that we will see more consistency and transparency. And I think that's the start of allowing people to be more aware of what this position can actually do and the powers tied to that position, because we don't learn that stuff in school, right? Like when I first heard, the first time I knew what a DA did in real life was around the case of Darrius Stewart, right? Around the case of Mike Brown. Before that, the only people that I knew, or only thing I knew, was what I saw on TV. Yeah. And that's not accurate at all. That's propaganda. Yeah. So,
gotcha.
And so I think this will be steps into the direction of getting folks more involved in what it looks like and how that position can be moved forward.
Well, one thing I do know, if Steve win, we gonna hold him accountable, aren't we?
Yes, and I do believe that he is able to be held accountable.
Yeah,
in a way that
I feel
Amy
like
has
that
not.
too. I feel like that. Amy seems very standoffish. And,
Well, we not her base.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So the one thing we know about Steve is that we would have been part of their base that got him in, and that's the other thing about strategy of voting. It's not always about who we think is going to do. Most of the folks who have been in politics for years are going to be political, right? But the thing that they can't get around is that they have to be accountable to a base of folks because they still need the votes to get there. And so a lot of times, especially like when we think about the president, we're talking about who can be moved based on the votes that we have power over, that we control.
Right.
And so I think that, one, he's accountable to a Democratic base. He's accountable to, which is mostly Black folks in Memphis. So he has to be responsive to their base. We just have to be able to push those issues collectively. But he's not going to get votes from anywhere else. So he got to respond to that.
That's true. Now, when are you running for office?
Never, child. Never in life.
You feel that way for real?
Oh, yes, child. Never, never, never. My work is definitely outside of the systems. I actually hate our current two-party system. And I feel like we need to turn that shit down and start over. But it's the system that we have. But yeah, I don't envision this as the best form of government for us currently. So
yeah, but this is what we got. This
what
is the
we
hand,
got.
the what do you call it? The
hand
that we've been dealt.
But we can also undeal them hands. I just want us to know that, like, we can put our groups pushing for constitutional conventions, and we should be part of that number because we need to rethink some of this stuff.
You for real, because like what you were talking about with some of the people that are in jail, for example, Brittany Griner. Today they announced that she received 9 years in Russia for a little cannabis pen, a weed pen. What is going on? Now, I know in different countries there are different laws, but do you think Biden has done what he needed to do to be more effective with this whole situation, or is it really out of his hands?
I don't know. I actually, like, this is one of those things where it's like I've been trying to better understand what
can he really do?
What can he do? Like, what can our country do? I mean, I think at the very least he could be more vocal about it, you know. But then I that's what I feel. But I also am like, you know, she's currently being held prisoner. And so does that make it that much harder to negotiate? And so it's one of those situations where it's like, I don't know what the precedent is about this. I don't know what has happened. I know that she don't need to be there for 9 years. And I know we need to try to figure it out to get her out. But as far as what actually Biden can do about that, I don't know. I don't know.
Do you think that Brittany being a Black queer woman, that's affecting what's going on today?
I think it definitely affects public perception. I think her being a Black queer woman has a lot to do with why she was over there, right? I think, you know, the disparities in sports and the disparities in pay, you know, that's part of like economic exploitation of bodies. So I think that definitely is part of the core of why she's there. As far as to why she's not out, I would assume Russia's just as racist as everybody else. So I'm assuming they weren't ecstatic. You know what I'm saying? They're not ecstatic about her. You know, they weren't like, oh my God, this great hero of our sports. Right. You know, I don't think that. So I think that at the very least, it would at least allow them to see her more as a pawn than anything else. And make her more exploitable in that way.
Wow. Now, you know, I know we press for time, Shay, but, you know, other than you being involved in activism in the Memphis community, you have been managing the career of artist Tyke T for years. And I kind of want you to talk to the people about how that journey has been with Tyke T, because you have really done some great things for his career and, you know, very creative, you know.
Yeah,
outcomes.
Well, I mean, one, it's definitely been a journey. Tyke is my brother, and we argue and fight like brother and sister all the time. And it's again just a learning journey. Like, my dad was a musician, and which is part of why, like, music, I think, arts are integral to activism and organizing. And so, you know, I don't think that you can do one without the other. But with Tyke, you know, I kind of just fell up on it. I was working at FedEx, and I was assigned to Tyke. Tyke was referred to me through a family member, and then He got the job, and I became his mentor. I didn't want to be. I was just trying to go to work and go home. Child. I'm not FedEx.
Yes.
And so one day we got to talking about him doing music, and I was like, I'm gonna connect you to some folks. And then the folks that I kept trying to connect him to was pretty much like, we don't know you, right? Like, and so I kept feeling guilty about like the fact I was like, Memphis is this great spot, and all this independent music, and all these folks gonna support you, and I was sending places, and that was not what was happening. And so I was like, well, let me just get out here and see. And so we just kind of started going places together. And I would be just the one person in the crowd going, when he would say, put your hands up. Now it's funny to see. I would be just the only person in there.
Oh, Lord. I can see Tyke on the stage tell you, put your hands up right now. Because Tyke, he going to bring that energy.
He is. And so we've definitely been in some of the hoodest hood joints. On every showcase. And so, we've learned a lot about the industry. We've learned a lot about and there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of gender-based issues. There's a lot of exploitation in the industry. Like, it is the standard to attempt to take from and exploit the artist versus to help and to move forward. Like, and it's the standard. And so then on top of that, there's also a stigma around hip hop and rap where folks don't take their artistry seriously and actually seem to hold a grudge against the hold that hip hop has on the world. And so the backlash that you see is that oftentimes they get very little credit for anything other than destroying young minds. Like, when you think about hip hop, it's always about all of the things that trap music, trap rap, trap this, shoot 'em up, kill 'em up, this, right, and it's very little about,
conscious.
Well, not even a conscious, but just what an art, what telling of a story does, right? Like, what is storytelling. Yeah. And we watch the storytelling in all other aspects, but we don't give the artist the ability to be more than their stories. And in hip hop, if you go against the grain and not do that, you're going to be ostracized. If you do it, you're going to be ostracized. It doesn't matter. You're not going to see independent hip hop folks at nice venues in Memphis. And that's a problem, right? Especially considering how much of the reason people will travel, the reason people know Memphis, how much of our sound is everywhere else. Man. We don't see it, and we don't have those opportunities here. Wow. So it's been a struggle.
I'm glad you've been creating opportunities along with your wife, Kat, with DreamFest. How many years now?
10 years. 10 years.
Oh, wow. 10 just had
years.
One. I went on a Sunday.
We did.
And giving, all the talent here in Memphis an opportunity to get up there and do their thing.
Yes, child. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
See, I know you know all about the inner workings of their business, but I just want to salute you for the amazing work that you've been doing in the community, because your name speaks volumes in the city of Memphis. Although you say you're not running for office.
Not never.
Hey, we need somebody that's doing the groundwork, though. We need somebody out here organizing.
Well, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm for.
Do that.
That's what my path is. That's what I'm called to do.
Yes, that purpose.
Yes,
right?
That's my purpose.
Wow. Well, what you got coming up, Shay?
So we promoting Tyke's new album. So, you can follow him on social media and on Spotify everywhere. So it's called Written by Tyke T. So he's always wanted to be an R&B singer, but he can't sing. So this album he wrote and had other folks sing on the album. So
I thought you was going to say he was doing some auto-tune.
Yeah, he got a little bit on there. I couldn't get him away from the little bit. It's a little touch of it on there, but it's a dope album. And so one of the songs that we're going to release a video soon for that. We are already planning for DreamFest 2023. We picked a date. It'll be back at the Levy Shell next year.
That's a nice
and free. And so y'all will be seeing that soon. And then activist-wise, we're working on some stuff locally that y'all will see more about around the bail reforms, transformative justice in our school systems, like really trying to think about the ways that we educate ourselves around conflict, around social media usage, just all of that. So we're doing a lot of training and trying to expand folks' understanding of what that is. So we think about justice. And I think the last thing that I definitely want to mention is, if you were there on the last day, I don't know if you stayed to the end, but the Freedom Singers.
Yes.
The Freedom Singers is my favorite.
Community choir.
The community choir. So the Freedom Singers is our community choir concept birthed out of a need to respond to the violence that's happening. And so it's a combination of support between three organizations: Center for Transforming Communities, Official Black Lives Matter Memphis, and Memphis Artists for Change. And we do rapid response. We have sung at folks' funerals. We can do visuals. It's community. We targeted community members. They get paid a fellow. We do they get paid a stipend. We do political study together, and we use music as an opportunity, a way to connect, and a way to show folks that like there's always still hope, even in our darkest times. And so like it is my baby. It's coming to an end. If y'all, we gonna put together a big event, I believe in September, to close out the fellowship so folks can come see it. We want it to be downtown near the river so it can have healing and calm aspect, but they gonna be singing. They
gonna be singing. I remember when you told me you was getting your choir together.
I told you I was gonna do that. It might take time, but I'm gonna do it now. If I say it, I'm gonna do it.
You did it. How can everybody follow you on social media?
Child, they cannot. They cannot.
Never
but
mind.
They can follow Tyke T, and they can follow the official Black Lives Matter Memphis chapter. But I do try to keep my social media and stuff to myself because, baby, it be them. It's a lot of folks with a lot of comments that anti-activists, anti-Black Lives Matter comments, and so I just try to keep it down. So
you the first guest that said that, but I understand why. I understand why. Hey guys, make sure. Although you can't follow her on social media, you're going to see her out in these Memphis streets organizing and keeping the community together. And I'm sure I'll update them on the event that you were talking about with the community choir.
Yes.
Coming up very soon.
Yes.
And DreamFest, they already planning for 2023. You got to check that out. Huge event in the city with plenty of talent here in Memphis. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of the Verbally Effective Podcast powered by We Are Memphis. Big shout outs to my guest, Shahidah Jones, in the building. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.